The invitation arrived on a Wednesday, folded once, addressed in a hand she recognized before she saw the return name. Myra held it above the kitchen sink and let the kettle scream until the noise filled the room. Her hands knew the curve of those letters. They had once traced them on fogged mirrors. She waited until the sound hurt, then turned the flame off and stood there, breathing steam, refusing the envelope like it could bruise her by touch alone. She opened it anyway. Paper slid free, stiff and polite. A ceremony. A date. A venue she had never visited but could imagine from photographs. Stone. Glass. Linen white. The words were clean, kind even, the way apologies are kind when they arrive too late to matter. He wrote that he hoped she was well. He wrote that it would mean a lot to see her there. He signed his name small, as if shrinking could make him gentler. Myra sat at the table and listened to the apartment settle around her. Pipes ticked. A neighbor laughed through a wall. Outside, a bus exhaled and pulled away. She thought of the day she had left with a single suitcase and a plant she later killed from forgetting to water it. She thought of the ring she had slipped into a drawer and then mailed back without a note. The envelope trembled in her lap. She folded it, unfolded it, smoothed the crease until the paper softened. Humiliation came later. At first there was only confusion. Why invite the woman you once failed? Why ask her to witness your happiness? She searched the lines for cruelty and found none. That was the worst of it. The invitation asked nothing of her except presence. The kind of presence that requires endurance. The kind that looks like grace from the outside and feels like swallowing glass from within. She did not cry. Crying had rules and she had already broken them all. Instead she stood and washed the cup she had not used, dried it, put it away. She watered the fern. She answered 2 emails. She practiced the shape of a smile in the microwave door, testing how wide before it cracked. She imagined herself in a dress she no longer owned, sitting quietly, applauding at the right time, leaving early with an excuse about work. Work. The word landed with a thud. Work had become a room she could stand upright in. After the divorce, she had learned to speak without apology, to file reports that closed clean, to walk into meetings with her shoulders aligned. The firm had given her language back. Numbers behaved. Spreadsheets did not flinch. Her manager had said she was steady. Myra liked that word. Steady sounded like ground. She read the invitation again that night under the lamp, slower this time. There was a line about dinner afterward, about dancing. There was a postscript asking if she had any dietary restrictions. She laughed then, a sound like a cough. He had remembered the wrong things. Or perhaps he had remembered everything and chosen which memories to keep. Sleep came in thin strips. She woke with the taste of metal and the echo of a church bell she had never heard. In the morning she put the invitation in her bag, carried it to work, took it out at lunch, folded it smaller. The paper warmed to her body. By evening it was soft as cloth. She told herself she would decline. She told herself she would go. Both felt like lies. The venue stood an hour away by train. On the day of the wedding, she wore a dress borrowed from a friend, navy, forgiving. She pinned her hair back and left a few strands loose to look like accident rather than effort. On the platform she watched couples hold hands with the confidence of people who believe time is a straight line. The train arrived with a sigh. She boarded. The building was quieter than she expected. Stone absorbed sound. Light fell without asking permission. She found a seat near the aisle. People arrived in small groups, laughter arranged like flowers. He was already there, speaking with someone, smiling the smile he used when he was being careful. She did not look long. Looking long was a trap. When the music started, she focused on breathing. In. Out. She thought of nothing at all and that took effort. He stood when the doors opened. The bride appeared, radiant in a way that seemed earned. Myra felt a clean, sharp respect. This woman had done nothing wrong. Myra clapped when everyone clapped. She kept her face still. After, at the reception, plates clinked and glasses chimed. Someone hugged her, said it had been ages. Someone asked how she was. She said fine. It was the easiest word. He approached with the same care he used with strangers. Thank you for coming, he said. It meant more than you know. She nodded. The music swelled and receded. She noticed how he did not touch her. She noticed how much that still mattered. She thought of calling a friend and decided against it. Some truths asked for witnesses and others demanded privacy. She leaned against the wall and counted breaths until her ribs loosened. The room behind her swelled with noise she did not belong to. She belonged, she reminded herself, to the life she had built quietly, brick by brick, without spectacle, without permission, with a patience that still surprised her and endured anyway. She stepped outside for air. The evening held. Lights glowed like held breath. Her phone buzzed with a work notification. A calendar reminder she had forgotten to silence. She looked at it and smiled, small, private. The screen showed a meeting scheduled for Monday morning. Attendees listed. A new name at the top, unfamiliar. She read it twice, then a third time, as understanding slid sideways and settled, heavy and exact. Monday arrived without ceremony. The office smelled like burned coffee and printer toner, the comforting scent of repetition. Myra hung her coat and settled into her chair, fingers resting on the desk as if on a familiar shoreline. She had spent the weekend telling herself the name on the calendar was a coincidence. Names repeat. Names overlap. Names lie. She told herself that because it allowed her to breathe. The meeting invite pulsed at 9. Conference room C. She walked there with her notebook tucked to her chest, heels quiet on carpet worn into kindness by years of feet. People filtered in, murmuring, shuffling papers, performing the gentle rituals of professionalism. Myra took a seat near the end of the table, where she could see everyone without being seen too much. The room settled. The door opened. He entered last. Not her ex. The other man. The one she shared mornings with now. The one who knew the exact temperature she preferred for tea. The one who learned her silences and did not rush them. Daniel wore a suit she had pressed the night before, careful with the seams, humming to herself in the kitchen. He looked around the room with a measured calm and smiled, small, at her, the way he did when he wanted to say I am here without saying anything at all. The introductions began. A senior partner cleared his throat and spoke Daniel's name, adding a title that sat heavy and official. New division head. Oversight. Strategy. The words stacked themselves into something that could not be unstacked. Myra's pen hovered above the page, ink trembling at the tip. She did not look at Daniel again. Looking would break the shape she was holding. Across the table, a chair scraped. Her ex-husband sat straighter, confusion creasing his forehead. Myra felt it before she saw it, the shift in air, the moment when a room realizes it has a secret and begins to pass it hand to hand. Daniel spoke then, voice even, respectful, a practiced kindness. He outlined goals. He named timelines. He asked questions that invited answers. He did not glance at Myra. He did not glance at the man who once had been hers and now was not. When it ended, people stood and talked in clusters, the way they do when adrenaline needs somewhere to go. Myra gathered her things slowly. Her ex approached Daniel with a smile that did not know what it was smiling for. They shook hands. Introductions happened again, this time with weight. Myra watched the recognition arrive on her ex's face like weather. Surprise. Calculation. Something smaller and sharper. He glanced toward her then, a reflex, and she felt the old instinct to soften him rise and then fall away unused. She left before anyone could ask her anything. In the stairwell, she paused and pressed her palm to the cool rail. Her pulse counted itself. She thought of the wedding lights. The music. The careful distance. She thought of the invitation folded warm in her bag weeks ago. She laughed once, quietly, at the symmetry of it, and the sound echoed back at her without judgment. At home that evening, Daniel cooked. He moved with purpose, sleeves rolled, knife tapping the board in a steady rhythm. Myra sat at the table and watched him without speaking. He did not fill the silence. He plated the food and set it down, then sat across from her and waited. Waiting was something he did well. It was one of the reasons she loved him. "You didn't tell me," she said finally. Her voice sounded like herself. "I didn't know until Friday," he said. "They offered. I asked questions. I thought about what it would mean." He paused. "I thought about you." She nodded. The truth of that landed gently and stayed. He reached for her hand but stopped an inch away, an old habit of permission. She bridged the space. His fingers were warm. She felt the day loosen its grip. At work, the weeks arranged themselves into something almost ordinary. Daniel held meetings. He gave feedback that did not bruise. He treated her ex with the same professional distance he gave everyone. Myra watched the man she once loved learn to speak carefully, to listen more than he had, to swallow words that might once have come easily. It was not revenge. It was gravity. One afternoon, her ex stopped by her desk. He looked smaller here, stripped of ceremony. "I didn't know," he said, as if that were a currency. "About him. About you." She waited. "I invited you to humiliate you," he added, quieter now, as if saying it softly could make it less true. "I thought you'd see me happy and feel something." She closed the file she was working on. "I did feel something," she said. "Relief." The word surprised her with its accuracy. He nodded, absorbing it, and stepped back. There was no apology that would fit the space. He left it empty. That was something too. That night, Myra stood on the balcony and watched the city blink. Daniel joined her, resting his chin on her shoulder. She leaned back into him. The air was cool. Somewhere, music drifted and faded. She thought of the woman in white, of paper invitations, of names at the top of lists. She thought of the life she had chosen twice, once away and once toward, and how both choices had required courage she had not known she possessed until after. Inside, her phone buzzed with a calendar update. A new meeting. A new quarter. She turned the screen face down. For once, the future felt quiet enough to enter without bracing. She breathed and let the stillness hold. The birth happened on a Tuesday, quiet and unannounced, as if the child already understood the rules of this house. The call came just after dawn. Her mother took it in the kitchen, listening without interruption, one hand resting on the table where so many decisions had been made without applause. When she hung up, she did not sit down. She stood for a long moment, breathing, letting the weight of inevitability settle properly. Mira watched from the doorway. She felt strangely calm. The sharpness had dulled into something heavier, something she could carry without cutting herself open. Her mother met her eyes and nodded once. "It is time," she said. They did not rush. They moved with the deliberate pace of people who knew that speed would not make this easier. At the hospital, the corridors smelled of disinfectant and waiting. The pregnant woman lay exhausted, sweat-soaked, her face stripped of all pretense. The baby slept in a clear cot beside her, small, red, breathing with determined effort. A life that had not asked to arrive like this. Mira stood back. She did not reach out. She did not look away either. The child's chest rose and fell, indifferent to adult failures. Something loosened inside Mira then, not forgiveness, not acceptance, but a recognition that the world would keep producing innocence whether people deserved it or not. Her husband hovered, useless and afraid, his hands clasped together as if prayer might excuse him. When he looked at Mira, she did not soften her face. She did not harden it either. She simply allowed him to see what remained after love had finished burning. Her mother spoke to the doctors, to the nurses. She asked practical questions. She signed where signatures were needed. When the papers came later, the ones she had anticipated, she read them slowly and passed them across the table. Her son-in-law signed. His pen pressed hard, leaving grooves. The separation was not loud. There were no raised voices, no slammed doors. Mira packed her things with care, folding clothes she no longer needed, leaving behind objects that belonged to a life she could not carry forward. Her husband watched from the doorway, saying nothing. There was nothing left to negotiate. Her mother moved with her. Not because she had nowhere else to go, but because some seasons were not meant to be walked alone. They found a small apartment with thin walls and good light. On the first night, Mira slept without listening for footsteps that might bruise her. Months passed. The house they had left continued without them, reshaped around the child's needs, the weight of responsibility settling unevenly on the man who had invited it in. He visited sometimes, standing in doorways, uncertain of his place in the world he had mismanaged. Her mother remained polite. Distant. Politeness was its own boundary. Mira rebuilt slowly. Work first. friends who had waited patiently, mornings that belonged only to her. She learned the shape of her solitude, its edges and comforts. Some nights she woke reaching for someone who was no longer there. Other nights she slept like a stone, untroubled. Her mother aged visibly that year. Not dramatically. Just enough that Mira noticed the careful way she rose from chairs, the longer pauses between tasks. Guilt flickered in Mira's chest, but her mother waved it away with a look. "This was always my work," she said once. "To stand where you could not." The child grew. Mira saw photographs occasionally. A hand gripping a finger. A mouth open in sleep. She felt no pull toward them, no bitterness either. Distance settled into something neutral. It was enough. One evening, a year later, Mira and her mother sat on the balcony of their small apartment, watching the city dim. Her mother held a cup of tea she had forgotten to drink. Mira leaned her head against her shoulder, the way she had when she was young. "Do you regret it?" Mira asked quietly. Her mother did not answer right away. She considered the question with the seriousness it deserved. "I regret the harm," she said finally. "I do not regret refusing to let it continue." Mira nodded. The answer fit. Below them, a child laughed. Somewhere, someone argued. Somewhere else, someone forgave too early. Life moved forward without consulting them. Mira breathed it in, feeling the ache of what had been lost and the steadiness of what had been saved. Her mother's hand found hers, warm and certain. The night deepened. And in that ordinary darkness, Mira understood that regret was not the same as sorrow, and sorrow was not the same as defeat. Some endings were not punishments. They were boundaries, drawn at last with enough love to hold.